frees you to let characters be themselves and not have to worry about what came before and what's going to come afterwards. But I think that book to this day is one of the best things I ever wrote. Now, Nick Ryan's an interesting challenge because Nick Ryan, unlike Moe, unlike Gus, unlike Gulliver, unlike, he's not a stumbler. He's very competent at what he does. He's uber competent at what he does. So that makes it a little harder, right? He's not stumbling around in the dark. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to do what he's doing. And it's hard to write a character who's very competent, not come off as Mr. Smug, right? To you still have to have a character with flaws, but his flaws are almost his competency is almost a flaw, and his sharp moral vision. He's a guy who's served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and when I was discussing this, how to write Nick with my agent, um, Shane Salerno, who himself is a well-known screenwriter, so he's a good guy to talk writing with. Um, he said, PTSD has been done, and it's been done well. And it's a funny thing is a lot of things that have defined my career is don't try to you don't try to do what other people have done, right? You're not going to write PTSD as much as well as other people have written it. So don't write it. Have your guy come back from the war, not with PTSD, but still just as affected by war and battle. And with Nick, he was affected by it in a way, and his vision, moral vision was sharpened, very much sharpened. I'm paraphrasing myself, you're being self-referential when you're paraphrasing yourself, is he says most of the world sees themselves in moral shades of gray, and Nick does not see the world in shades of gray, and that was because of his time on the job and his tours in Afghanistan. Sleepless City is the origin story of Nick becoming basically New York City's shadow warrior. Uh, as his handler says to him, Nick, we'll make the messes, you clean up our messes. How we make the messes is up to us. How you clean up the messes is up to you. Uh, and we will give you every resource available, any phone number, any place you want, any video, it's at your disposal. But you can never tell anybody that that you're doing this, and people can't know that you're doing it. It gives everybody plausible deniability. And in Sleepless City, Nick is given this job and then has to perform uh, some really kind of despicable things. Um, but he thinks he's doing them for the right reason and to protect the city. And Nick is a guy who he doesn't care about the rich people in the city. Who he cares about are the little guy. It's who he grew up being, from a cop family in Brooklyn. And so he really believes in duty. He really believes in doing his job. And if rich people benefit, great, but it's really to protect the little guy. That book, as you've read it, is full of a cast of interesting characters.
Who are any of your favorite supporting cast that show up
Oh,
there and then in
yeah.
Blind to Midnight?
Two in particular. Uh, Lenny, who is an MIT trained PhD and holds patents in data manipulation, who Nick has saved from a fire years before, and Lenny lives in the basement of a synagogue on Ocean Parkway, um, and who still uh, does has great ideas and is really a genius at data manipulation, uh, but won't share it with the world for fear of how it will be used. And we're experiencing that right now with deep fakes. That is what Lenny is afraid of. So he's a great character. and Mac. Mac is a bartender at a Brooklyn bar who, in fact, was a dirty tricks operative for the Brits in Northern Ireland and has faked his own death and is in working as a bartender in Brooklyn. Of course, Nick finds him out. And so these guys are like his supporting cast. Second books are hard. Second books are hard. Second albums are hard. Second year series are hard. Why? Because you set up expectation. And I found something I've always thought about is series. You first year series or books in which there's a heightened reality. I'll use Ally McBeal or Picket Fence as an example of a David E. Kelly series. They're heightened reality series. They're not realistic. They're kind of pseudo realistic. The impulse is then in the second season or in the second book to go bigger. And that is not my impulse. My impulse is to go smaller. Because once you go bigger, then what do you do in the third season? You can't keep going, you can't keep going bigger. So my impulse was to go smaller, and the story is a more contained story in Blind to Midnight, and it features something more personal to Nick in that we've all grown up with aunts and uncles who are really family friends, not really blood relatives. And Nick's uncle and his wife are murdered, and seemingly for no reason. And so this starts Nick off on a trail of being not only the city's fixer, but a kind of a private eye, doing a kind of a sub rosa investigation of this murder.